Unmute. Okay, how are we now?
Hey, I can hear you now.
Okay, good.
There you are.
Good.
What's up?
Nothing. I don't know if they told you, but I was paired up with someone, and this is between us, and I basically, decided no way. And I saw your video, and I was like, because you're like, you want to, what's the word? You want to come to a middle ground.
Yeah.
The other person was like, wow, like just unbelievable. Like, ranging from Trump's a racist to anyone who supports Trump is a Nazi. And I said, you know what? I have a service dog. I have PTSD. I am not going on with that woman. She would have like eaten me alive. She had anger like you couldn't even believe.
It's crazy, man. I know. I feel equally as frustrated with those kind of people on both sides.
Yeah, the goal of what they're trying to do here is what you said. I was very impressed with your video, and I just, anyway, we'll talk about it once we start. Now, you, Trish, did they tell you that you got to videotape yourself on a phone as well?
Yeah, I have my phone right here set up. That's like looking at me from kind of like a sideways diagonal. So it's kind of like my profile mostly as I'm talking to you.
Yeah, I got pretty much. Okay. And then basically we're going to videotape that. And, it doesn't matter. Instead of a computer, I'm on a phone. Now, I don't have to have landscape on this phone, do I?
I mean, I can see you fine. I'm recording this on my Zoom. So what's here is what we'll see. So, I mean, you have like black bars, but I don't think it really matters.
So if I were to go landscape, you think that's better?
I mean, you can. I mean, if you turn your phone, it should automatically adjust, but I don't really think it matters. We can see you fine.
Okay, cool.
We can see you
All
fine.
right. Yeah, that's a lot better anyway. And then I'm trying to think, and then I'm good with, I'm plugged in as far as battery goes. How's your battery? Good?
Yeah, my computer's plugged in and I have like a full charge on my phone. So that should be
You want to do like a solid hour?
Yeah, at least. Yeah, at least.
Okay, cool. And then you have all the questions?
I actually don't. I talked to one of the people who's running this, and they were saying initially they said something about immigration and
Good.
and something else. And then in the video, did you watch the video they sent, the YouTube?
Yeah, I would say probably it's whatever we want to talk about, but like immigration is great. Ready? Yeah. Police, because you and I can find common ground there because I'm for marijuana. And no other Republican is. And I'm for social justice, meaning like a lot of African Americans tend to get pulled over. And I agree with that. And I even agree that some of the proceeds for marijuana should go into community policing and to lowering taxes and doing other things. So let's think: immigration, police,
and then like they said, what's that?
The
rioting, and then like the 2020 election was like a broad topic they gave out, which we can obviously hit. I'm sure we will at some point.
So if you want, if you want to just write those 4 things down, and then you could kind of remind me if I don't flow into it or you don't,
Yeah, I'll just get this down really quick. Let me grab
I'll start recording now.
Cool. And then like, I would love to talk about something like the tech world and like social media and like media in terms of.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah. Okay. So we have immigration, we have marijuana, we have the election, and we have police, and et cetera. And then we have technology.
Let Ashley know that if she comes down, that she's going to be in the shot. It doesn't really matter, I guess. Oh, cool. Yeah, the social media, I'm affected by it. I have 400,000 followers. You could imagine what they're doing to me.
Wow. Oh man. And especially if you're politically active on there, it's just like it's a shitstorm.
Oh, dude, when you see later on, Google Joseph Rudy Rullo,
Yeah.
And I'm literally on the internet famous. There's no money in being famous on the internet. Let me rephrase it, but you know.
You got to do what the influencers do, where you like get companies to send you things and pay you to advertise for them. That's what they do now.
Yeah, but then you lose your you lose your sovereignty. I'm gonna eventually, but it's got to be the right product.
That's how I feel. I mean, like I go really kind of back and forth with this influencer style of working, you know, because it's like I get it, the world we live in, like adapting, but then it's like if you're going to advertise for anyone, like that's just being a sellout versus like picking products that you believe in that you actually think are worthwhile to like show to people that will like agree with you if it's on your brand and like you know makes sense to you. Like sure, why not?
Exactly. You know, like I was gonna push Trumpy Bear, or like you know how there's AARP. Well, now they have a conservative senior AARP. It's called something else.
Mm.
And you know, you get an account like that, you're set.
Yeah. What's the difference between the two?
You know, just all the conservative values are like probably in the one product. Like, for example, you know, probably less government assistance. They're not, you know, trying to lobby for, you know, more money. They're more like lobbying to, you know, benefit maybe the, I don't know, maybe the deficit.
Yeah.
I didn't really look into it, but you can imagine what it is. I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? Like, no abortion involved with it. Who knows what it is? You know.
Yeah. Interesting.
The so real quick question. So you're recording now on your end. I don't have to record.
Correct. Yeah, I have this whole Zoom thing covered.
All right. So I'm recording on my phone and on my Zoom. We're ready to go. And so if you want to start with something like, you know, ready, I'll just say ready. We'll just be casual. So what is your stance on immigration reform? What do you think?
So I would say I'm pretty much a centrist-y kind of person on this. Like I like definitely agree with the idea of America being a place where people can come for what's the word when they're like running from problems elsewhere, like asylum. Yeah, right. Like I agree with asylum having a situation of the ability to accept asylum people. I don't believe in open borders. I don't even know anyone who does, which is why I find it very funny when people say that liberals do. I would say just generally, I always like feel like I fit in more with liberal policies, but I don't want to go as far as what I think the other side's always saying about liberal policies. You know, like I don't believe in open borders. I think there is a cap, right? There has to be we are one country. We can't just accept everyone. And there's and I think there should be some organized way of saying where these people can be of value to our nation and how many of each type of person, whether it's asylum seekers with, you know, basic labor skills or high end, like educated type of immigrants who want to come. And I do think like we should secure our border in some way. I definitely don't think it's just, it should be like an open land to walk in on no matter what. And yeah, I mean, I'm not a huge like policy nerd about it. I also just don't agree in demonizing immigrants either in any type of way. I'm aware that's kind of American history. We've done that our whole history of America, so I get that, but I don't think we should. But yeah, I think there's a middle ground to be had. I think there is really a place in between both like accepting new people in and also making sure that we're not denigrating our own country's economic stability or population control based on it.
Yeah, and I think that what we're doing here too is kind of educating one another on, you know, you're more towards the left, I'm more towards the right, but there could be some center stuff. And, you know, with the border, I am in agreement with you that, you know, we need to basically make it so people can't just come over the border, just like in Canada, just like in any other country. They have sovereign borders and there's policies that you have to do to come over the border. For asylum, I think that, you know, because it was being abused, that it needs to be reviewed, but done in such a way that we do it with humanity. And as a Catholic and as a Christian, the Republicans would agree under certain circumstances, some will, you know, be qualified for that. The other thing too and about immigrants. Immigrants are immigrants, and I'm for immigration completely. And I believe that when you go through immigration and you become naturalized as a citizen, it's great. But when people are coming over the borders and they're basically having kids here so that their kids can become American, and they're collecting any way, which way that they can, the benefits of being a tax-paying citizen while being under the radar and basically not, paying taxes because they can't without a social security card. We went 4 years, and there was no compromise. And now, if Biden wins or if Trump wins, either way, something's got to be done with the ones that are already here. Now, we already know, they say Trump is such a racist and such a xenophobe, but the guy didn't deport more people than Obama, pretty much. Obama had more deportations, I believe, statistically. But the thing is that we have to do something with the ones that are here. Now, I'm against amnesty. I believe that there has to be even if it's paperwork, like Trump said, where you basically deport them and then they are brought back again. Whatever you got to do, but you cannot send a message to the world saying that these citizens came here illegally and now they just get the whole entire gamut. They get everything handed. And that's just not how it works. I believe that, illegals that are here, many of them are contributing to society here. But also I'm a victim of a almost 3-decade landscaping corporation that was legal. We had, all the employee comp, the payroll, the taxes, and I was competing against people that used to work for legal Americans were now ditching us and starting their own company, not paying insurance, not paying taxes. I would go to a job that I would bid, let's say, $2,000. I couldn't even touch it for $2,000 because it was going to cost me $2,000. And they were doing it for like 25% of the price, like $500. I can't take a $1,500 loss on a job because, the immigrant that I'm competing against has all of his employees living at his house together with them. He's not paying insurance. He's living on cash, and he has no insurance, and the company's is as illegal as he is. That's the frustration I have. And something's got to be done to try to, remedy that. And I am more than open that they should be paying taxes without amnesty, that they should be, on record. I'm against giving illegals driver's licenses until you do this. In New Jersey, they gave illegals driver's licenses, yet they're still illegal. And I don't understand it. They have no social security card, yet they're giving them driver's licenses. And nobody wants to solve the real problem. You were talking before, sense that, yes, we got to secure the borders. That's first. And then once you secure the borders, we're not going to deport the people that are already here. It's not going to happen because under Trump, it didn't happen. So if it didn't happen under Trump, it sure isn't going to happen under anyone else because he's the most extreme with immigration, basically. So that's really where I stand. I was a little bit surprised. You're very, I would say you're more libertarian viewed on this, which is great. You're not at a point, I don't know, now that I spoke, you might not have, I don't agree with the kids being caged. That was Obama's cages. That's a fact. They have to come up. But the thing is, what about the parents that irresponsibly drag these kids over deserts or use coyotes to get them in here, right? I understand the extreme circumstances that they're under, but the problem is, we're in law and order now with Donald Trump versus before they were just letting people come over the borders. It was porous everywhere.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot to you hit a lot of points there. So I'll try and see where I can jump in. I think first and foremost, when you're talking about people coming in, hang on, let me think how I phrase this. So I think first and foremost, rhetoric is important, matters. And I think, if we're talking about people who are already here, giving them a pathway to citizenship, to Social Security, I think that's something that we say, yeah, like if they do this, this, and this, they can get these benefits, they can get these things. But historically, these have not been easy tasks to get through, right? It's been a long process. So it's like you have to go one step at a time. You can't say, oh, well, so these people are living in our country, right? They're, whether they've come here illegally or under the radar or whatever, they've had a kid and so their kid's legal, whatever. And then they're trying to live and function in our country, but they don't have legal access to all this stuff. So they're not paying taxes. They're not doing all the other stuff that everyone else is doing. If the process for them to actually get to that status of being a part of America is not applicable or not reasonable in a certain amount of years to get to, how can we draw these two like opposite agendas for them and say they have to do this, but that's going to take years. So in the meantime, what, just sit tight and do nothing and try to just like, I don't even know what the option for them would be.
I mean, think about what happened here. I mean, you're right. Like, we had 4 years, we had control of the.
Oh wait, hang on, you just went muted on me.
I'm not going to sit. I had to get rid of a call. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I'm not sitting here saying that basically that there's a situation where there's people that are, all wanting the same exact thing, but you had Republicans had control, the Democrats had control, and it seems like nobody wants to take on this horrific, gorilla in the room, so to say. And yeah, you're right. Like, Donald Trump basically shut the borders, at least secured the borders, and you didn't see
his rhetoric pushed people from coming here, I think, more so than anything. Like, immigration dropped because he was demonizing them all across the world, and I think that has an effect on people coming here. So, I mean, for better or for worse, if that was the goal, like, it definitely happened. But in the meantime, like, what backlash do you get from him demonizing these people in such a way? Like, you can make policy and you can fight for, like, common sense immigration reform without having to say that, these people are destroying our country and then cherry picking certain aspects of the system itself that is screwed up to then say it's all the fault of these people who are genuinely most, not all of them. Yes, there are coyote problems, there are drug problems, even though most of the drugs come from sea, not from land. So it's like, by making it a us versus them problem, it exacerbates the backlash you're going to get from getting anything done, which is, in my opinion, the hardest part about this whole thing.
See, my biggest problem wasn't like so much, I definitely think that there's bad and there's good people, and that's with whether they're legal or illegal.
Right, exactly.
I think, Donald Trump deporting every single murderer, criminal, that was awesome. But then at the same time, where my problem is I wanted the Senate, I wanted the Congress to do something with the illegals that are here to make it more competitive, so that if they did have a business until they figure out what's going to happen to them, and when they are working for my competitor, they're not getting cash, they're not off the books, and we could all kind of remember these are all expenses, right? When you have an illegal, there's no expenses. When you are illegal, there are no expenses. When you are legal and you have to, the government comes at me with a hammer, okay, if I'm not paying taxes, doing this, doing that. So, like, I agree with you on one thing that, to me, I think that the demonization of both sides, that, people like myself, I don't know if you've met someone who, I owned a 30-year company that I had to make a decision because of illegals, specifically from Mexico, in New Jersey. I had to close my business because I couldn't compete with them. Okay. You can't compete with cash. I can't compete with them not having insurance. I can't compete with 10 of them living in one house because they're being promised that they're going to get citizenship, and they're working, ready, not for money, but they're actually working for, whatever. They're not getting paid as much as they should. And that's, by the way, this might surprise you. I am in fear that some of them are in slavery in this country, and something needs to be done about it.
Well, I mean, what you're saying is, like, the problem is, like, if there's not accountability for them, whether it's positive or negative, yeah, there's going to be people taking advantage of them. They're going to be working for nothing or for whatever they can get because they're not in the system that we're trying to uphold here. So I think the people falling into the cracks is the problem. And
that's common ground that you and I have. And this is incredible that most people would never think that a Trumper, right, or a conservative, I'm a Christian. I have this cross around my neck. I believe in Jesus Christ, the Holy Spirit, and God Almighty. I don't want to see anybody, made a slave. We're against, human trafficking for children or adults or anyone else. And these people are being brought here from other countries and are being told, if you don't work today, you're gonna get deported. They don't know. They came here. A lot of them don't understand English. So basically what I was a little bit disappointed in is that, the Senate and the Congress with Pelosi and McConnell and both sides, they avoided what are we going to do with the ones that are here?
Exactly. Well, and like what you talk about, like, I mean, listen, I'm willing to admit that there's been media cherry picking, like situations of, hostility towards migrants or whatever, right? Like I know it, but it did rise. Like studies have shown that since Trump got elected, there's been rising of antagonism against anyone who even looked like they might have been not white, right? So I think in that way, it's like, how can we support someone who pushes that rhetoric out there when it's like what we should be focusing on is what you're saying, is figuring out how to help these people that are here and not trying to make it look like they're maliciously trying to take over our country or trying to hurt us, when really everyone comes here for like the American dream that we all fight for, that we all, I mean, most people, but like I think you do, like the idea of coming to America to better your life, to make money, to raise a family in a proper way. Like we should be reaching out across to other people that have come here, it's like, whether they came here illegally or not, they're here now. So what do we do with them, right? And that's what you're saying is like we have to figure out what to do with them, and we have to create clear, concise laws and ability to withhold all those policies that we actually.
And the problem's going to be 2 points: is that one, no Republican or conservative is going to bend. There can't be amnesty. Yes, you can make them pay taxes, perhaps even get a benefit to some of, if they're paying into different things like Social Security or disability or something like that, but they're not going to bend to say, okay, these people are just going to become legal overnight. Number two, ready for this? And I'm going to tell you a tidbit that's going to blow your mind. I'm SAG, right? So that's like Hollywood and New York. And you know that an illegal alien is not allowed to work on our set. Why? Because they don't have a Social Security number. So like all these Hollywood actors could talk all the smack they want. Guess what? If you're an illegal alien, you can't work on a set of a SAG set, okay? You're never going to be on a real, quote unquote, motion picture or TV show if you're an illegal alien. Therefore, if they don't have either a fake Social Security card, which most of them hopefully don't, or other things like that, they're going to have the same exact situation where, it's going to be over and over and over again.
I mean, I work in entertainment too, so I know about that. I mean, it's interesting because I even think like this, we like calling them like illegal aliens is very much an American thing too. Like how we even like refer to people who don't have citizenship here, who are working here that aren't like a citizen of the country. I think just in a general sense, I think there's a better way to try to talk about how we integrate people into our society at this point. And I just, again, what you're saying, it's like both sides in Congress are not sitting down and saying, let's figure out how to make this system better. And I will give Trump some credit that he brought light to this issue that was being kind of swept over. And like, I mean, and like, ironically, yes, like Obama did deport a lot of people and he did build the cages, but the problem is that he wasn't treating them. And the only people that were put in cages during Obama's tenure was people who were actually caught with drugs or who were caught as criminals that came over. Trump was putting them in cages to prove a point, to fear tactic type of stuff, and just automatically throw it. He used those policies with an aggressive fear-based tactic where it's like, and that came to backlash from the left of like the kids in like kids in cages, like which no one wants to see. Like any rational non-sociopathic person doesn't want to see that. But then I just don't understand how we think that this way of going about it is going to make the situation better. And like,
I'm for legal immigration, right? Completely. And the reason I use illegal aliens for purposes of this, specifically this show, is to make it clear that they are illegal and that in a lot of cases, again, I witnessed myself, I was at a steak place, right? They make steaks like those quick, like a Philadelphia steak. And I'll never forget when Obama first legalized or made the Dreamers Act, basically. And I remember my friend speaking to 3 individuals, I won't say what nationality or origin, and telling them, aren't you excited that you're eventually going to, pay taxes like us? And they said, no, no, we don't want to pay taxes.
Well, who does? I mean, whatever. Come on, who wants to pay? No one wants to pay taxes, but like
3 people, not 1, not 2, but 3. And to know,
I don't want to pay taxes, but I will because I'm a part of this. But like you put them in a situation, it's like that they're not, and then you're like, but what are they going to get from it too? It's like they're going to still be like at the bottom of the barrel. They're not giving an opportunity to like, they're not shown like what the purpose of that is, right? I just think
and the Congress, they have to, do something. And
yeah,
right now, you hit it on the nose. It's a very polarizing issue. And basically, the other thing you were saying is about, what was the other thing you were saying about the name calling? That's your side. And then our side is saying, well, you're calling us xenophobic. You're calling us racist because we don't want people. See, you are for one of the biggest things that Trump people are for. We're not necessarily want to deport these people and hurt them. What we want is we want the border secured so illegals can't just keep coming in.
Well,
and that's the big thing.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know, like, I don't live by the border. I mean, I used to live in San Diego for a minute, but not anywhere where I was associating with people from the border. And I guess it's like the caravan's coming, like we have to have a way to process these people, but you're not going to stop people from coming because you have a larger wall or something, right? Like they're still going to keep coming. And yes, maybe a couple, even if you have a wall, there are going to be people that figure out a way to get over it and get in somehow. But it's like, I think that's just it's a distraction from what we're talking about, actually creating a system that can function with the overflow of the possible people who are sneaking in, the possible people who are trying to be malicious in the way they come in here. Like, yes, that's going to happen whether you have a higher wall or tell people they shouldn't come, either way, right? But
Trump definitely isolated the lawbreakers, which is great. It's a good start, right? He reduced the amount of illegals coming in, but now what we need is reality, that the ones that are here, they have to be, they're all working anyway. So they should all be paying taxes like everybody else. And like you said, it's baby steps to get.
Yeah, exactly. And like we should really like isolate what's the most important issue right first, make sure we get that in line, and then kind of follow suit of how these people integrate functionally into our society, and don't do what happened to your company where they're creating these side hustles of businesses that can outflank you. And like, I agree, like that either way, it's not fair. So it's like, but it's like, it seems to be we're distracted. And this is my biggest problem with Trump in general, is he's a distraction from actually getting anything done, because we're in this culture war of things he says that trigger, other people, humane people who claim to be for human rights or whatever. And then we have to sit here on Twitter or in the on any news channel or site and debate, is this a proper way to say anything for 4 hours, 10 days before we can even get to the basic policy?
I agree with you on that. And you're right. And you know what? I agree. And the bottom line is that, Trump has been on the receiving end, being called a racist, yet Martin Luther King's daughter or niece or whatever is hanging out with him. He's never been called a racist until he was president. He's doing very similar.
He did have the Central Park 5 situation.
Yeah, that one incident. But again, I'm not here to. If he was a racist, I myself have brought up my daughter, who's African American, and basically from birth she was adopted, and I met her mom after her husband had passed. So I brought up an African American daughter, half Latina, and I hear being called a racist. Just what it comes down to is that if you're a white male, middle class, heterosexual, you're being demonized as well. And you know what? I never thought that until recently, but that's another subject. But
this is, I mean, unless if I give you the final word, but I think that's a good transition into kind of racial justice and police brutality and stuff like that.
Yeah, that would be great. So, where I stand on that, real simple. I believe that any police officer who breaks the law should face the same law we all do. Right. Additionally, no police officer should ever abuse their power, just like any other politician. I believe that just like there are bad apples, right, in the teaching industry, in the Boy Scouts, in the
At the
religious
church.
industry, everywhere, okay? But it doesn't give a right for people to, these police officers, many of them, if not most, have our interests in mind. They're not out there all the time to try to arrest people. They're out there to actually uphold the laws that a lot of these radical, for 3, 4, 5 decades, right? Liberal areas like Chicago, these inner city areas, right? These inner city areas, all these laws and everything that's going on there, this is Democratic controlled areas. Well, they just want to defund the police department. Well, you know what? Look at what's going on in Oregon. Look at what's going on in Seattle, all these other areas. It's unacceptable. And the police are at a point where, they're being put in danger's way. And yes, there are incidences where there's police brutality. And I think it should be prosecuted at the fullest extent of the law. And what will surprise you is that I am the only Republican that I know of, other than maybe 1 or 2 others in New Jersey, but I'm the most prominent Republican, I think, nationwide, as a governor candidate in 2017, as well as now, and being a conservative talk show host nationally. No other Republican backs marijuana legalization, and I did in New Jersey, and we won. And what I believe, I believe it for so many reasons. Number one, I'm an entrepreneur, and people are doing it anyway. And I'm an entrepreneur. And also, I believe that money should be broken up in thirds. You give a third to community programs and to help areas that are having these problems with social justice, and to bring education programs so that police are working closer in their communities. Another third to lower property taxes. And then another third, I forgot what the other third was, but pretty much what I'm getting at is I am for, social justice in this particular matter. I know a guy who went to jail in Ocean County, New Jersey, I believe for 11 years for 15 plants. And all he sold to was his family. That's like he had weeds in his backyard and he gave some weeds to his family. Yeah. And now it's legal. Well, Murphy, our governor, best let that man out of jail, because I'm being quiet right now. I'm giving them a couple of months to get their stuff together. But that's the reason why I support legalization. And what's funny? I did debate on a national program 3 Black Lives Matters activists versus me and 2 officers, one from where you live, a big wig chief, and another guy from where you live. And what I saw Black Lives Matter representatives on that show say, and the one guy and I, Michael, agreed completely. We both were for marijuana, but the other, one of the women said that these riots, including arson, destruction, vandalism in their own cities, the people that are destroying these cities are destroying their own home areas, their own businesses where they've shopped from, their own economy. They said that it's a means to an end for social justice reform for the BLM. And I never thought I would ever hear that, because I believe they're 2 separate groups, right? Antifa is more destructive. BLM is people that aren't necessarily connected to that. Why do I know? Because I also do some news reporting for Shore News Network. And I covered a BLM, and I asked the girl that was running it, do you denounce Antifa? She said, I denounce Antifa, and I will stand arm in arm with these police if somebody comes and tries to hurt them or tries to vandalize. We'll throw them out of this event. That's it. That's where I stand. Where do you stand?
Yeah. Okay, so let's start from the beginning. I think I agree with you. I don't think we should be demonizing the police the way that a lot of the the left side is. I went to one of the marches here in LA after the George Floyd video, and I felt really uncomfortable when they were saying fuck the police, all this stuff, because it's like, I mean, yes, I know it's like I know that I am a white man who has not experienced the life of a Black person. So I could never truly understand what that's like. And I have a lot of sympathy for that and a lot of compassion for that. And I I think, I've done a lot of research on the whole Black Lives Matter movement, and I think this was like a catalyst for an issue that wasn't exactly related. Like, of course, what happened to George Floyd, of course, what happened to Breonna Taylor, of course, what happened to all the other names we talk about is horrible, and we should know. And no one wants that. I don't think any non-sociopathic person wants all of that, right? And I think the problem is that we took these, again, cherry-picked, isolated incidents of wrongdoing, and with no proof in a lot of them if it was racism or not. A lot of it was poor police training, which is like, we should be, and I hate the word defund police, because I think it should be reform, right? Like, we want better training. And if that in the culture of policemen is a certain type of way, just because of the people who are, it's not like it's a job that everyone wants to go to. So you have to think about, these are real people who come from who wants to be a cop? I don't know anyone who wants to be a cop who's like on the left leaning side, right? So they're coming from different cultures. You have to figure out, and like, especially I believe in community policing and all these things that like make it a service to, and the reason I do believe in like addressing systemic racism through this, even if it's not directly correlated, is because I think there is history of policing that has been to the detriment of Black communities, right? And for, not that they shouldn't be policed because there are more crime in Black areas, right? But what I agree with you is that it's a half an economic thing too. It's like, it's equality based on bias, which is there and should be addressed in a reasonable, logical way, but also should be addressed economically, which is making sure that the communities that are over policed or having a lot of high crime get that funding for community services, like treated like a suburb where they get money for community after school activity, education. And I think, I agree with you that marijuana legalization is a great way to give a sort of reparations to these communities that have been so decimated by redlining policies, by like even Biden's 1994 crime bill, all these horrible like things that we've done in claim of law and order, but we're actually forgetting half of our country that has been forgotten over and over and over again, very subtly, very grossly in the beginning, obviously, because of slavery, and pretty for a long time after, but through since segregation, even just those subtle shiftings of, we're getting better, but we're still kind of on the core, not going to really address making sure that we are treating everyone with economic equity in a lot of ways. So I think, I do think marijuana could be a great way for reparations, and not that we should defund the police, but we should figure out a way to make sure that the police are doing their job and not the job of mental health experts or community organizers or breaking up, abuse situations, like things like that can be handled even beforehand, right? Like giving them a space before it doesn't get to that situation where they're calling the cops because their neighbor is having a psychotic break and they don't know how to deal with it, right? And this is such a systemic issue in many ways beyond just policing as itself, and it's one piece of a much larger puzzle that if we could look at with a little bit more, like, for lack of a better word, black and white, right? And like looking at the humanity of just how someone lives their life, and looking outside of our own backyard of what that means. And of course, legalization,
drug intervention too. What you were saying is, community programs.
And I just want to say, first and foremost, like, yes, legalize marijuana, but also decriminalize it across the board and get everyone out of prison for all these drugs. Like, we should not be putting people in jail for drug offenses, for drug abuse. You know what I mean? This is not, they're not criminals. They're sick. They need help. And like this idea that, the police just police reform, like this, the whole jail, like reforming is crucial to all of this, and how we, like the incentives, like privatize prisons and everything. All of that is part of this puzzle that we need to start organizing in such a way where it's humane outreach for the betterment. This is supposed to be in service of, right? Not a punishment for, there are, like, as if there are people that are just inherently bad in the world. I don't believe anyone is inherently bad. I mean, maybe the few people with, brain malfunctions that we can deal with, but like on a large scale, this should all be for the benefit of everyone around them. And that includes giving people a life that they can grow up with opportunity and the vision that one day you can rise above where you are now. And I feel like a lot of these communities that are neglected over and over again don't have that. And when you talk about looting, it's like, yes, I 1000% don't agree with looting at all. Like whether they're Antifa or not Antifa, whether they're caught up in the moment or not, it's just stupid. I mean, it's stupid, really. I mean, I don't,
It really is.
I understand. I can empathize that like they have no other, they feel like so angry and they have nothing, they need to they just like freak out for a second. They need to get it out, right? Like it's their only way of standing up against something. But I also think we have to ask ourselves, why are they doing, why are they resorting to this? Why do they feel so helpless in their lives where this is a viable option for them, or this is something they can defend as a way to get their voice heard? And that's what I mean, where it comes down to, why are these people feel so lost in the world? Why they feel so left out? And
I personally think that, this looting and this chaos was done to show that there was instability up to the election. All of a sudden, a month before, when the tide started turning against them and Blue Lives Matter launched a national parades on the water, you saw them, the parades around the town with the police, and they were pushing law and order. You saw almost it disappear a month before the election. I mean, this is where we might
not really. There was still the Portland stuff. There was still like there was that rioting in Kenosha.
But I believe that this was an orchestrated thing, and these people would come around at nighttime when the more innocent BLMs were doing their due justice to try to vent. They were frustrated. They wanted to exercise their First Amendment through speech and assembly. And then all of a sudden at night, you have burning buildings. And by the way, it's not a spare the moment thing. It's either you are a criminal who steals, because drug addicts, right? A lot of them don't steal, right? A lot of them don't kill. At the end of somebody's drug problem, a lot of people didn't ever go to jail from abusing, let's say they abuse a drug. If you don't kill, you just don't kill. If you don't steal, you don't steal. But when people are going into buildings and walking out with TV sets, and we saw it on TV nationally, these people don't follow the law and they want to defund the police department, and it makes me sick.
Well, again, it's like, I agree that like, I don't think we can put those two people in the same categories, right? Like, yep. I think it's like, I think, yeah, there are people who took advantage of the situation in those moments. And I mean, listen, I don't have any evidence whatsoever that there's an organized principle behind those people. I think I think anyone who was an opportunist in that moment could have quickly brought something out, but I'd love to see some sort of evidence that there's some organizational aspect to across the country that did that.
All of a sudden, right? Like in New Jersey, you weren't allowed to protest wanting businesses to open, and that Murphy, our governor, was being too rough on businesses, right? They were all closing. So when the Patriots wanted to go do a rally at Trenton, they got summonses and threats of arrest in the Attorney General's office. But then a week later, Black Lives Movement, that was fine, though. You're allowed to do that. And they didn't want protests a week before.
Well, let's be clear. There was a lot of police attack on protesters throughout this whole thing, right? It wasn't like they just let them do it. There were videos after videos of police attacking the protesters who were just protesting because they were out when they shouldn't have been and they didn't get permits. So you can't really equate that there was that one side got it much worse because they applied for a permit versus the people who are getting attacked by police officers with batons and gases and cars running through them. Like that was, there was both issues with that. So I
isolated incidences where there were crowds that were innocent. That
or not. I'm just saying, like the police attacked both sides for trying to rally and gather to do this.
But the police didn't run anybody over. You're talking about that case where that guy showed up and ran into people. They got the raw deal on a couple. I agree. It's isolated to where the area is and what happens. But I saw a concerted effort as well with the mask. All of a sudden, Biden doesn't do any rallies other than has 10 cars in a parking lot. He's wearing a mask. Everybody's wearing a mask. They're in a car. All of a sudden, Biden might win, right? Tuesday was election day. Friday, 3 days later, they almost called it, but they were going to have a press conference. but instead it was Saturday. And all of a sudden Saturday, all the liberals go out in the streets and they're all partying. But guess what? Before that, we were the bad guys, the Republicans and all the conservatives and all the Trump people were crazy because we didn't want to wear masks outside.
They were wearing masks. A lot of those people were wearing masks too. Like, and I mean, listen, it's like,
but they were out in the streets though in droves. But all I'm saying is,
and then they did it with their Mega Million March. They all did it too. So it's like you can't. Both people are hypocrites on either side.
I agree with you that the MAGA Million and all the other marches, we never tried to act like we were never for not, you know, I don't want to wear a mask outside. A lot of people don't. I don't go to a lot of events that are real huge because I don't want to wear a mask. I wear a mask inside, as you saw in my video. But like what I'm getting at is, I think with what you're talking about, it's clear that weeks coming up to the election of Biden, oh, we're the good ones. We don't have rallies. And Trump's the bad guy. No, they didn't want Trump to have rallies because it was momentum. And all of a sudden, when Biden won,
mask wearing either.
But everybody went to the streets on
He was
Saturday.
at a rally saying it was a hoax. So like, how can you say that one is equivalent to the other?
Not equivalent, but isn't it a little odd?
Parading around, I'm getting 40,000 people together in a closed space to tell you that the pandemic doesn't exist, versus people running out of their house in celebration for a couple hours with a mask on. Like,
yeah, but we're talking about, you know, hundreds of thousands of people in one area, just like Trump did, but way more. And bottom line is, mask or not mask, hey, listen, KN95 is 95%. A other mask, right? The surgeon mask is 90%. But these little masks the cloth mask, they don't work. And the bottom line is, I wear the K95. And you know what? Between you and I and the rest of the audience here, I don't go to events unless I'm protected. And I wear my K95 into stores and anywhere that I'm with people inside. When I'm outside, if there's huge rallies like that, I just don't go because I don't want to wear a mask.
I would say you're on the more like minute scale of the majority of the people that I would assume to be on that, you know, like in that.
I'm a germphobe. I'm a germphobe.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, like, I really, it's also like, I hate the fact that masks are politicized because I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think, I mean, it's just kind of like, we're all I mean, first of all, we all are, I think, if anyone who believes that the coronavirus is not a hoax is trying to do our best. And it is hard. Let's be honest. It's been about a year. Like no one is absolutely perfect. And I think there's a difference between when even if in the moment you are condemned by the head of the party, there is a difference between the representation of someone who says it doesn't matter and it's over and we're getting over it, and someone who says we still need to be aware of it. And I think if you're cherry picking this one day, that there wasn't like condemnation from the left of these people coming out versus the 8-9 months of the other person saying it doesn't even exist and it's designed to destroy his election, his reelection. You know, it's like, I don't think you can really equate those two and say they're on the same level.
Necessarily to destroy, but I think they made they ran on COVID, right? And the fact that Donald Trump was not as strict and as principled as you're saying, more of like a
principled at all. He said it didn't exist.
Well, he never said it didn't exist. In fact, he said
the hoax.
Shut the government down for 2 weeks, and your Democrats didn't do anything. He's the one that shut it down and caused the economy.
Well, the president, so I would hope so. I mean, like, so
but he never said it didn't exist, and he also shut down the border to China. And your Democrats said that he was xenophobic for doing it. Well, we would have had it way worse.
Yeah, but again, I think the difference between that is the way he went about. I mean, he's been calling it the China plague, and it's like it's
China virus. But again, there's Chinese food.
He does call it the plague. He does call it the China plague. But
yeah, maybe he did. I didn't hear him say it.
But I just think like what a president says matters, right? And I think, first of all, with the shutting down China, the virus came in from the East more than it did the West anyway. I mean, maybe you could say that's because of China, but people were still coming in from China when he had that lockdown because there was people who are American citizens. There about 40,000 people still came over after he banned it from China, after he banned that. And then the hotspot was in New York, because by the time that we even knew the virus existed, it had already gone through Europe. So
And Italy was huge.
so there was a whole month of people coming in from the East without any ban whatsoever. So I feel like that argument is totally bullshit.
I mean, what's important, I want to get this out, is that what I really believe, Nicholas, is that we have the challenge of a lifetime, right? On one hand, we have to make sure that we respect people's rights. On the other hand, we have to respect people's health and their life. And to balance those two, and that's what you're picking up from me, is that I do take, I was going to be a doctor. I took epidemiology. I took all the courses. This is like a flu, but it's very contagious. And it's indiscriminate, right? It doesn't know who it's going after. And if you have pre-existing conditions, you can die. So pretty much if you're around people that you can spread this to, that you can kill, if this were to result in that. And again, the statistics are, I believe, 95, and this is being conservative, right? It's being liberal, actually. 95% of the people don't die from this, right? Yet we're shutting down the government and everything else. We need to learn that there are states that are leaving their government open, and basically people who have a pre-existing condition need to wash their hands. They need to wear a mask. They need to go into places. They need to avoid people that are not following the CDC guidelines. In fact, Nicholas, I blew off a movie a week ago where I asked the guy, after he approved what the wages were, I asked him, I said, are you going to be outside? Is it 100%? He ignored what I said in the email. And I said, let's finalize, call me. But by the way, when he ignored that, I then went on to say, I need to be assured that you will be following CDC guidelines. Guess what? They never called. Yeah. So there are people out there that aren't following the guidelines. And yeah. I personally think if you want to go outside, don't give me a dirty look if I'm walking in the trails of the woods and I don't want to wear a mask, but if I'm in a supermarket and that's the rules, I'm going to follow it.
But like, okay, so here's my biggest thing with that is like, you're a very sane, logical, person, like educated, like, so you kind of can parse between the lines of these two extremes, right? The problem is that a lot of people can't, and I think what I said earlier about immigration is like, when you have the leader of our country making this a political black and white issue, you have these people getting in fights, it's punching people in supermarkets. You have people like claiming it's a hoax, claiming it was, the Democrats created it, like all these things that stop us from being able to do these logical things, doing our best to create an environment where maybe there is a half and half where we try and isolate people who are at risk and get other people who aren't back in the economy and figure out a way to contact trace and protect the people that might have been susceptible, and all these things that we should have been doing from the very beginning. And we could have prepared for while we did lock down for 2 months, which whether or not it was the best or not the best, we can debate that, in hindsight. But like, we should have spent all that time making plans, and what has the federal government doing? Literally nothing, saying it's up to the states, which is fine. Like, I'm not against states' rights, but in a situation like this, you need a unified, not only government, but a unified message to get out there that we can all come together, treat each other like Christians, like respect your neighbor, do our best to try and empathize and look at how everyone else is living their life to try and make this the best it possibly can, all knowing together that it kind of sucks, right? And I think that's where it's like,
country though, and this too, is that we have so much freedom and people are so afraid that, we're going to go back to the days of the Revolutionary War where,
in what world do people really think that though?
But I'm telling you, listen, Murphy has done some things in New Jersey that don't make sense. He has basically.
That's different from going back to like Revolutionary War style, like, you know what I mean?
You're not understanding is that they closed down parks in New Jersey, and when you start doing things
here, and I agree with you, we
made a mistake. And he reversed it. But when you start doing that, you start to look like exactly what you are, a dictator.
But do you know what I'm saying is like, people are so quick to have distrust in our institutions and our governments that if they make one mistake with a new scientific virus that no one understands, we all panicked.
Then answer this. How come Cuomo and Murphy basically caused most of the deaths by putting these people into nursing homes. And one of them is a veteran who's my friend's father, who should never have died because they put these people with COVID, well, because they thought that they were isolated. No, they're nursing homes. They were not hospitals. And they killed a lot of people. That's why people are so pissed. That one of them. The other thing is because they close down things that they shouldn't be closing down. And you're right, there's a learning curve. But at the same time, these people it's not so much that they're uneducated. It's that they might have a family that doesn't have pre-existing conditions, that they might have to run their business. Sometimes the remedy, the cure, is sometimes it's worse than anything.
Well, here's the other thing is like you're missing like every other progressive country with a high economic value has given the support to their citizens when they had to do these closures, these shutdowns, because we didn't just let people free reign and say, you're on your own, but we're shut down. Like, obviously that's not going to work out. People are freaking out. But every other, like in Europe, they gave like 90% of their wages to people who are out of work. Like this is, we need some, this is why we pay taxes for this to be support when we need it. And it's like,
the problem is they're not doing, and you're right. In other words, most of the people that are the MAGA Republican type or the conservatives, a lot of them are working people, but a lot of them own businesses. They're restaurants.
Private business,
there aren't any programs for these people, and they're dying. They're losing everything.
And I think that, I mean, it's just like it was the lack of unification on the issue and the lack of support for our country at the time when we needed leadership at the high. And that's why I think the Democrats did run on COVID, because it's like just the lack of leadership in general was just kind of astounding for when all we wanted to do was try to figure it out together. And all this man, you know, I hate like putting it all on Donald Trump because I don't think it's all his fault all the time. But what a president says matters. What a president does matters. And it sends a shockwave to people that support him and then don't like him to then
when this first happened, Nancy Pelosi in her hometown was basically telling people, oh, don't worry about it. And she was going to go to a restaurant.
Yes, that was a lot of people though, but we all, but what, you can't go back to like March and say, they said this in March, then like the people say like Fauci said in March, masks don't work. And then a month later, the science came out and we said, oh, now we've learned more and we're changing our mind. So you can't play that game though. You can't take what this is like, as we progress, we're learning more and more we're adjusting and learning. So it's bad faith to go back and say they said this at one time, so therefore they're corrupt and they're not good people. Like it's just bad faith, man.
You remember when Fauci said, like, you don't have to wear a mask? It was crazy. I remember going through supermarkets and saying, this isn't right. And you know what's funny? I knew it wasn't right. And all of a sudden, 2 weeks later, when they had the one ways on the aisles and everybody was wearing masks, I was like, they made a big mistake here. They should have had masks weeks ago, at least inside. And then like,
it's like, why are we trying to like say you were once wrong and now we no longer trust you at all, because we're all like, it's bonkers to me that we can make these like absolutes about like, oh, they did like, even, yes, I agree with you. I don't think Cuomo handled it the best at all. Like there's a lot of problems with that. Right. But it's like, why are we saying like I don't think anyone says his intentions were purposely to kill people.
I think you could agree with me. I think you could agree with me on this one thing, is that it was politicized, and you got a guy running for president and he's being told that he's doing everything wrong. Yet, you know, he did do a lot of things like shut down the border immediately. He did close down the government.
Like he did
crashed an economy that was the best economy ever. But and he could have ignored it, because you said that he denied that it ever existed. He never did. He actually closed the economy, which I think is pretty good that he did that.
But there are Trump supporters who say that it doesn't exist, that it's not real.
There could be. Well, let me be honest with you. Anyone I don't know anyone that doesn't think that COVID's real, but there may be. Just like there's people that believe that they're entitled to rob a store, right, and burn it down. So you're right. There could be people out there like that. I've never met anyone. They wear masks. Some people don't. But at the same time, some believe that 95% of the people don't die. And hey, let me get it and get this over with, like measles or chickenpox. People believe that they have certain rights. And that doesn't necessarily make them, necessarily a Trumper They could be a libertarian. They could be a somebody who is,
I mean,
an anarchist.
listen, I find this whole like freedom defense to be really frustrating because it's like freedom is not just like a do whatever the fuck you want because you feel like it. There is a responsibility. Like we're Americans, and that used to mean something, that we're all in this together. And sometimes you sacrifice a little bit of your quote unquote freedom for the betterment of the country. And we can disagree on exactly what that means. And in the privacy of your own home, like sure, shouldn't be cops coming to bust down your door, and we should. But we also should,
right?
right, but like in public spaces, we should try to find a way to not to do our best for each other. And like if wearing a mask when you go into a grocery store is like the freedom that you're worried about, the communism coming into the country, I think you're really misinformed and confused about like what that means, you know?
I personally think that if somebody goes into a store and the store's policy is to wear a mask, if you don't like it, then don't go in.
That's what I mean.
I don't care if you're a Trumper or you're a left wing. It doesn't matter. Like the bottom line is, if you, my thing runs that, closing businesses, people want to go out to eat, take off their mask and eat inside. Ready for this, Nicholas? I haven't eaten dinner out inside since March.
Neither have I.
Okay. And, but at the same time, I do go to every store. I love shopping, but I come home and I spray the bottom of my feet with rubbing alcohol. Literally, I got 80% in a bottle. I'm very protective over it, but what's great? I hate flus. And before this, I was OCD anyway. I've disclosed this on every other show I've been on. I have PTSD, and part of that is OCD. And I'm a germ phobe, and I've always used a napkin in a bathroom. And if they don't have a garbage in a bathroom, I'll use a napkin and just throw it on the damn ground in the bathroom. You should have a damn garbage can in there. This is the year 2020. We have bacteria, we have viruses. And you know what? If some of these dirty bastards would have washed their hands and been, and don't go, ready? How many years have we been, for 20 years, I remember going to a political event in 2017 and being told, when I went to this political event, I had a flu. Don't worry about it, just go. Are you kidding me? Like, we would never do that now, but we did it all the time. And I wonder, could I have hurt somebody doing that? Probably.
I mean, I used to work in the service industry, and you would never call it. I mean, unless you were vomiting. I know people, we would work when you were like vomiting in the back, the seat, like you were sick and you're vomiting in the bathroom in between like serving your table because you couldn't miss work, or you couldn't call out, or your boss would get mad if you called out for being quote like sick. Cause like, we just didn't have this, like, it was different, right? Like we didn't look at sickness the same way.
So we basically had, we did, police reform, police social justice. We did immigration. We just got into COVID, and we did marijuana. So something that's near and dear to your heart and mine. As a social media celebrity, I have 400,000 followers. I reach 70 million people, and I cannot stand censorship. And I'm as responsible as I can be. If I take something that is a meme on the internet that's been around for 4 years and I share it, and then I get whacked with a fake news, but the thing's been around for 4 years and it was on your page, meaning the actual publisher is one who owns, whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or whatever, now you're going to sanction me. And then you're sanctioning, people that are more on a certain side. I don't know if you saw the hearings, but they were admitting Twitter was coordinating with Facebook, and they were actually coordinating. They were mad at Facebook because they wouldn't get rid of Bannon, right? Bannon was saying things, and he's a conservative, right? But at the same time, I'm a conservative, and I used to get 2,000 new followers a day. I now range from anywhere from, when they're really censoring me, 25, to maybe I get a couple hundred, and then maybe 500. I'll hopefully get back up again. I am completely humbled by my following. I am completely, I want to use the right word. I am completely, I love the fact that Facebook has given me an opportunity to be as big as anyone on Fox News or any of these other channels, CNN. Half these people have captive audiences. People only watch them because they're on that. I have people that come and watch me, but at the same time, you know, I know that there's a lot of restriction, and, you know, they know where I'm at, everything, right? You buy something, or you're looking at a product, and all of a sudden you start getting these ads for it, and they know where you're going, they know what you're saying and what you're doing. And I know this is near and dear to your heart. Where do you stand on the censoring too with this?
Yeah, I mean, so it's so interesting because like this whole, I mean, Section 230 of it not being like publishing or not publishing, right? It's like they're private platforms, so but they're also not publishers, but they do have terms of service. So it and then and then so that's like one side of it, because it's like they try and draw this line of freedom of speech, but they're also like anti, you know, aggression law, like public like situations. But then so they're kind of publishers, but not. They want the best of both worlds, which I find to be really problematic. And then the algorithms that they have are shown to be mind warping pretty much. So it's what you're seeing is a categorized little funnel of everything you like, pushing you further and further to keep you on that platform, which is making you more and more extreme or more like pigeonholed into one view. So the problem is that the effect that it's having on individuals is making them do more extreme things out in the world. So that's why they're dealing.
You're right.
That's why
You're
they're
right. They're rewarding me when I post something that is Trump related, conservative related. It goes
like,
viral. Versus if I put something out there about my dog and everybody thinks it's sweet, even though I put a lot out there about, because not only do I do my shows on you know, politics, but I do waterfalls, I do zoos, aquariums, and I do my dog, and I do beaches. I do it just as much. But guess what? They always capitalize on what you're saying. The politics. And you're right. They put me in a box.
Exactly. Well, that because it's all focused on what's going to keep you on the platform. So it makes all of your extreme emotions the most like targeted ones, and it shows you more and more of that. That's why you would get more attention from that. So, but what the problem is like it's having people act out in real life. So they're in this weird place where they're like, well, we have to somehow, they don't want to give up their algorithm because it's making them a lot of fucking money, right? Like they don't want to, like, in my opinion, they should just shift the algorithm a little bit. And it's a self-learning algorithm that is a billion times smarter than you or me, that knows how to keep your attention, keep you, you know, aggravated or excited or turned on or whatever gets you in your social media more and more. But so they're now dealing with like people who are nefariously trying to make these things get people going, and that's having a negative effect in our world, in our politics, in other countries, you know, like in Myanmar, like pulling governments down, right? Like genocide, like all these things they have to worry about. So they're then trying to censor appropriately to make sure that people are going into rabbit holes of misinformation, of things that are justifiably untrue, that are proven, but then shown in such a way that makes them feel like they're seeing it here, there. So they're like, oh, this must be reality. So how do they deal with that? I mean, I think there should be a whole reforming of the way they use the algorithm to use social media. But in the meantime, I don't have a problem with them censoring misinformation if it's misinformation. If there's a general scientific consensus on something, or a general consensus in the public space, and there's people saying like, you know, things are not real and it's having a negative effect on the country, on the world, or whatever the country, like there should be some sort of ability to control that. Otherwise it'll spin out of control without it, because the algorithm doesn't give a fuck about us, you or me. It doesn't give a fuck about how we look at the world, or how much we hate that other person, or how much we think that there's a government conspiracy about this, that, or the other. Like it doesn't care.
They're definitely outside the logarithm though, have throttling, and the throttling is from liberals or conservatives that are reporting one another. And then you get on this, like, you know, basically you get on a hot seat. And I've been on it, right? I start to get messages on my instant message. You can imagine with 400,000 followers, I keep my message open. Yeah. You know, oh, your mother must have got kicked in the stomach. Your mother must have drank alcohol when she was having you. I hope you fucking die. I'm going to destroy your business, whatever they say. As that increases, I notice that all of a sudden I'll get a fake news hit. And that fake news hit, you don't realize it, but it happens about a week before you start to see all of a sudden your likes go down, your followers, how much you're reaching, and then all of a sudden you get the notification. And some of mine were, I'm going to give you like an example.
Yeah, I love an example.
Of Pelosi's house with a fence around it or wall, and it was not her house. I didn't know, and it was on the internet, and I shared it. I got whacked for that. I got whacked for a true thing where Sharia law was banned technically in North Carolina in a family in a family court because a husband tried to argue that he can do X, Y, and Z to his wife because it's Sharia law. No, that's not how this country works. But they were saying because it was broad, and I said North Carolina banned Sharia law, not that local town. I then, ready for this, Google Joseph Rudy Rullo fake news. You know these fake news promoters, the ones that go after us? They've done articles on me to make me look like this guy that creates these. Guess where I got the meme? I got it from the internet. It was 4 years older.
Well, here's my question for you is like, don't you feel some type of way about sharing fake things? Like even the house thing, as simple as that is kind of it's maybe just rude, but it's also like, if it's not true, like, don't you think there's I even one time when Donald Trump was running for president in 2016, I shared that meme that was like, oh, Trump said he would run as a Republican because Republicans are stupid, which turned out to be fake, right? So, but I felt really ashamed. I was like, oh my God, how did I should have looked this up. I should have, been aware of this before I ended up just clicking to share, because it's irresponsible of me and being aware of that's out there. I don't ever share things now because I don't want to contribute to this cycle of abuse that we're doing to each other, which is making each other more politicized, more divisive, and more just mean to each other, which I find to be so gross. And like, I think I watched The Social Dilemma, and it really blew my mind. It didn't blow my mind because I knew about this, but it put into perspective the only way to fight this is for each one of us individually to be responsible for, like, 100% responsible for what we're putting out and doing. And it's shitty because it requires all of us to do our own fucking like independent research, and be an investigative or journalist to be like, is this real? Is that real? Is this real? Like all the different sites that can tell you one way or the other. But I think it's irresponsible, especially if you have a lot of followers, to be putting these divisive comment and memes and things out there if you're not fully aware of what it is or where it's coming from and the truth.
To answer your question, I guess it was about 2.5 years ago when I started to go, viral, and I started to become celebrity level. And I realized, like you said, I was kind of like taken back that, wow, that house might not be hers. And I created a policy. Basically, I checked into everything I was sharing. Some of the things that you share, for example, like when Biden was giving a speech and he had cars in the parking lot, I shared something that said he's pretty much against fossil fuels, right? He's for recyclable energy. And I owned a solar company. I'm not putting him down for it, but the bottom line is, here you have people in a parking lot, and it was more or less like comedy-ish or almost comical. And Facebook whacked me for that. Or some of the other ones, like, for example, the Sharia law thing.
What did they say about why did they whack you for that?
They said that it wasn't true. Or, ready for this, the MAGA March? They actually whacked me. I showed a huge amount of people and said that, whatever the number is that we came up with, we're there. They said that they had somebody measure it quantitatively, and there's no way this many people could fit in that spot. I never said that picture was the only place there were people. And yet I got a fake news on that. And that's a hard hit. Okay, that's like a credit report, right? That would be like going over your limit and then not paying your bill for 90 days. That's what they do to you. And it takes a month or two to get back into the logarithm again. And I didn't do that to hurt anybody. I, in fact, thought I was sharing a picture and reporting it objectively that there was X amount of people there. Who are they to tell me how many was there when it was not confirmed how many were there or not?
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of this like weird place we're in. Is like every individual person now can be their own reporter with a lot of power of how people feel about things, right? With social media. And it's like, how do we, and I don't know, I don't have a per se opinion on what's the right way to handle it, right? I don't think Facebook or Twitter knows the right way to handle it. I think they've made a lot of bad mistakes, and I think they're trying to do their best for the best of the country. I don't think either of them have ill intent at heart. I do think though, like, if you're going to be one of those people who post really like strong political views about things and facts and numbers and that sways a lot of people, I don't think there shouldn't be any oversight on it. And whether that's perfect or not perfect, I don't think that it shouldn't happen though. I mean, I think
not only in my First Amendment, right, with Shore News, I'm a candidate for governor, and I like you said, for the last year, I check everything. I don't even share things with a bunch, you know, the memes that have a bunch of bullet points about your opponent.
Yeah.
I don't do it because I can't research everything anymore.
Right, exactly.
So if it's something that says I support my president, or ready, Donald Trump is still president with a little sun rising with his face on it. You can't get whacked for something like that. Or like a picture of a dog or a cat or an article. Oh man, you share an article, it's not even your article. They'll whack you for it. So it's like, you know, remember too, as a governor candidate, I want to talk highly. I've worked with the New Jersey Facebook people. I've worked with the congressional Facebook people in Washington. And when I was running for governor, they've always treated me very fairly. And you know what? Some of the things that I put out there are that now they're calling it out of context, right? Yeah. Which is very hard to like understand what out of context is, but you're not getting hit as hard for that.
Yeah.
What affects me is like when I'm on live and I know that I have 400,000 followers and like there's 50 people watching when I'm being censored. It's like, it's insane. It's overwhelming. It's sad. And like you said, somehow they have to take this logarithm and just start over again and be fair about it. You know, the more extreme left people, I'm sure they're getting censored as well in certain circumstances, but because they even said that they weren't throwing off what's his name I said before, the big guy, one of Trump's guys back in the day, Steve Bannon.
Yeah, Steve Bannon, yeah.
It was like surreal, like to hear them say, it's not fair you're allowing Steve Bannon to be on. It's like, it's not fair that almost 99% of the conservatives are censored and ready. Maybe 20% of your people are, they're swayed. And it is what it is. But Bannon is an example that we are, you know, not swayed all the time. He knows somebody in Facebook or something.
I mean, this may be a bias of my own, but like, does it ever occur to a lot of conservatives that maybe they're getting more censored, not because of Twitter's bias, but because there's a lot more conspiracy theory, fake news in that environment?
I don't. And by the way, you bring up a great point. I agree. I don't share things about conspiracy theories. What I do is, and I say this on every show I do every morning and every afternoon and every night, I go to Fox News, I go to CNBC because they're kind of real Democrat, liberal swayed. I go to CNN, I go to, let's say, Newsmax, and then I go to each source. If it's about Donald Trump, I go see what Biden's saying. And then I say what I'm going to say, but I don't say, like, for example, there was something going around about a sniper that the person who killed that Osama bin Laden wasn't killed.
Yeah, there was this is Trump tweeted that conspiracy that Obama had SEAL Team 6 killed because he was lying that Osama was killed or whatever. It was
I'm not sure if what he did or what he didn't do, but honestly,
he did tweet that conspiracy.
I mean, I wouldn't, because it's not true. And the bottom line is, you know, should people have a right to tweet and to put out what they want? It's freedom of speech, First Amendment.
If our president is tweeting it, do you think he should be censored? Like, if a president is tweeting a conspiracy theory with no evidence, should that be censored or not censored?
Well, I mean, not you, but the liberals out there would say that it's a conspiracy theory that, the Dominion software, proven fact, comes from Venezuela area. Dictators tend to use this software, and it actually has directions that say you can calculate and it will give you whatever result you want. That votes were actually calculated, in other states, in other countries, because they were subcontracted. That there were votes that weren't counted in Georgia, twice, 2 batches of them. I
mean, so you're compounding a lot of different things right there.
I'm just saying that there's people out there, not you, but other people would say that's a conspiracy theory. I don't. It's a fact.
But I've read a bunch of those articles as well, and a lot of them don't actually give you the facts. They're assuming a lot about what that actually means. And you know, with those Venezuela stuff, a lot of those articles that put they not only say it's like from Venezuela, but that it's connected to the government, and there's like they put it on top of, like, this is what conspiracies are. It's a small truth or a half truth, and then they add on all the bullshit on top of that. So yes, you can pull out a little subject and say, yes, there maybe that was made in that company was made in Venezuela at one point, but it doesn't mean that when you share an article that says all those other things that it validates this conspiracy. They're not one and the same, and we should be really like vigilant on making sure that people aren't being confused by those two facts, right? And people aren't nefariously trying to prove their points by things that are not true.
I won't even indulge nor use as a source anyone that even uses a conspiracy theory, because their credibility shot. I had 100 people instant message.
But you endorsed Donald Trump.
Well, I don't agree that Donald Trump necessarily is a conspiracy theorist.
But you do it. Okay, wait. You don't agree that Donald Trump promotes conspiracy theories?
I think that Donald Trump believes certain things, and he puts out his First Amendment views. And if he's wrong, he may not be admitting it, or if he's right, he might not be admitting it.
Wait. So you think he's allowed to tweet conspiracy theories to his 70?
It might not be a conspiracy theory to him when he's tweeting.
The one you just said, the SEAL Team 6 one.
I don't know if he did that.
No, I'm telling you he did.
Okay,
he did.
I mean, I never knew that he did.
So let's just assume for this thought experiment that he did, right?
I can only speak for me.
No. So
don't do that.
But for this thought experiment, if let's say he did, right? Do you think he should have been able to do that?
My thing is, I don't know if he knew that it was or wasn't.
Okay, but if it wasn't real, should they have censored him?
Who, Twitter?
Anyone, yeah, Twitter.
I don't think that if it wasn't true, I don't think you should put out anything that isn't true. But
then you're saying it's his First Amendment right to put it out if he wants to.
Meaning censored, they shouldn't be censored, because it's not a, if it's First Amendment, right, and it's a publication, newspapers print stuff that isn't necessarily true, and they're allowed to do it.
But they also have ethical obligations to retract if they make a mistake. Like this is why. But yeah, but the good ones do. Like Fox doesn't a lot of this, but New York Times, all them, they do retract when they make ethical errors. That's why we have laws for publications, right? Because
the stuff that they spewed out on Trump, like time and time again, things that weren't true. And then it turns out that they were wrong about him, saying things about his family, this and that, taking his tax returns and spinning it around. If you're not a business person and you don't have a Schedule C, you don't understand what write-offs are. If you have, $500 billion worth of assets, you could have a zero tax return if you have payments that are exceeding that. It happens. And you could pay zero taxes, let alone only $700. And I'm not condoning anything. I'm simply saying that everybody takes what they have and builds on something small and makes it bigger. So I agree with you.
Yeah,
everybody does it. You know what it's called, Nicholas? It's called politics. And they do that right before he's going to run for re-election. And he does it to Biden.
I think bringing it back to like the technology thing, I think there's a difference between publications that have been around for years and years and years, who have ethical, whether or not they're like, we have to be able to separate bias from like actual tried and true like ethical and business practices, right? Like there are certain publications that we know have a responsibility to put out true news. And there are
politicians are known to run ads on TV. They don't pull them off when they're not true. Politicians are known to put out newspaper smears that aren't true. It's politics. It's the way it works.
But there was never a way to target people as precisely as social media can do. Like,
TV can do it too, and
because there's no algorithm on TV. Like you can be sucked into watching Fox all day, and they can show ads that make you more susceptible. But if you're on Facebook, and they can, a news corporation can go to Facebook, or a company can go to Facebook and say, I want to target like African Americans between 35 and 18 who are more likely to have gone to jail, and they can target those people specifically with a fake news ad type of thing and get them to feel some type of way. So this is a different level of being able to not even manipulate, but control people in such a way, because the same way they
think about if your audience is like non-social media, and there's a lot, to get something in the mail that says somebody's a child molester when they're not, or that they robbed a bank when they didn't. They do it. And that's just as damaging as social media. I agree with you.
No, it's not though, because you're in, but what
in your opinion.
No. This is like scientifically the way that
I'm talking about somebody who ran for office. If I wanted to damage somebody, I wouldn't use Facebook would be the first. Ready? Hear me out. Facebook would be pretty much the, I guess, the grunt war, like snipering, just to start on the rumor. When you really bomb them, you hit them on the mail and you hit them on the TV. But I agree with what you're saying. It's one out of many things that can be very effective on spreading things that aren't true. 100% I agree with you. And
it said misinformation travels like, I think double or 3 times faster than, or maybe even 10 times faster, something crazy, more than truthful information, because it's exciting and that's what the algorithm does.
Let's get hopping because I got to get going.
Yeah, cool. I think we hit all the different.
We kicked ass.
Yeah, man, we killed it.
So we did. Let's see. We did border immigration. We did COVID. Mm-hmm. We did what else? Marijuana. Police reform.
Technology. A little bit of politics in there, so thrown in.
Ethics.
Yeah, ethics. Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
You and I think our tension came with Donald Trump. I'm just what I'm saying now, but like, I think you and I tended to like almost a lot of the issues were kind of like, we had a lot of common ground.
Yeah, I agree.
But when it comes to Trump, I seem to feel that what I saw, and I put up with it for years. I watched in 2016 when we were running for 2015, 2016, I watched the Republican headquarters get bombed. I watched my friends who had beautiful cars with Trump bumper stickers get their cars keyed. I watched people whose homes had Trump things get broken windows and all this other stuff. And I didn't react at first until now. I'm sick and tired of hearing, you opened up my eyes that, I've always knew, Nicholas, that there's a lot of you out there, Nicholas Ferrara. Yeah. And I knew that. I was never the type that thought it was all or none. Right. But, I do know that Donald Trump, whether it be him or someone else, the platform that he carried, right, was whatever we discussed and more, is why we supported him, not necessarily anything but that. So if there had been another person who ran, and I talked to many Republicans who said the same thing, that if it was a monkey that ran and it was doing the exact promises made, promises kept, and Donald Trump kept all of his promises that he made and he kept them. He made them and he kept them. And also he basically was always answering to us. If we have someone that runs that does that, we're going to support them. And, some of his shortfalls, as I have as well, everyone has them. Did this help him during the election? Probably not, at the end of the day. But at the end of the day, he's still president. We'll find out by January 20th what's going on. Hey, we even covered the elections and Dominion and everything else. And I appreciate all your time.
Yeah, no, likewise. I mean, like, just final thoughts. I mean, I definitely feel some type of way that if you're a Republican who believes in all the Republican points, right? Like, you're not going to find a home on the left, right? I understand that concept. Like, all of the policies that Trump is doing is very traditional Republican. So you're not going to go to the other side when there's nothing there for you, right? So I really feel this kind of frustration of like, there has to be some sort of way to figure out what the difference is between them. I mean, for me, it's like the reason I can't with Donald Trump is just kind of like, even if I believe in it, he just seems so divisive, and I think, and for a lot of ways, there's definitely someone better than him, right? So but I get it. I get it. So I'll digress because I'm not going to go anywhere with that. But
I think we did so good too,
yeah,
because I consider you now like, a beginning of a friendship. And,
yeah.
I don't see you as, even before this, I don't see you as a Democrat or a Republican. I mean, like I said, there was a prior
I don't
person that
identify as a Democrat either.
I was supposed to go on with someone else that was calling Trump a rapist. Okay.
Yeah.
And he's never been convicted for it. She was calling anyone the 70 million people who voted for him basically stupid and bad people, and that they're Nazis. Okay. I can't debate somebody like that because that's abusive. Do you
Yeah.
know why?
It's also
Because you and I,
dehumanizing. It's dehumanizing. Like I get mad about Republicans Republicans dehumanizing like minorities. So why would I ever not be defending liberals who are dehumanizing Republicans? It's like it has to go both ways. And I think my whole goal is just we're all fucking human. We're all living in this country. We all should be able to like treat each other as such. And I mean, I heard this the other day, the best in a perfect democracy, conservative and liberal values at their highest points balance each other out. They're meant to be working together to create a more perfect union. So we need each other, right?
everybody has to work together. We're all
Yeah,
humans. We're all on the same spinning planet.
exactly.
And that's it. Thanks, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. Nice talking to you.
You too. God bless.
Good luck with your race.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Take it easy.
Later.
Bye.
Bye.